All right, good morning, everyone. Hopefully, a little bit taller. I'll try this up a little higher. Hopefully you can hear me well enough. My name is Nikki Baird, and I'm a managing partner at RSR Research, stands for Retail Systems Research. And I'm just curious, how many of you have heard of me or my company? That's about what I thought. All right. So what we do is we provide market intelligence on retailers' technology adoption trends. We do this primarily through surveys that we send out to our community of retailers who participate in these surveys. We have about 30% of our respondents, 35% of our respondents come from Europe, and of those, about half of those are from the UK. So I personally, I've been at RSR for about 5 years, actually was one of the founders of the company, and for the 2 years before that I was at Forrester Research, where I started first writing about digital signage in the retail environment and how retailers could make use potentially of the technology. It all kicked off with actually with Walmart's implementation of their digital signage network. Some of my examples will be primarily US based. It's the only place I can go take pictures in retail stores and get kicked out all the time. But actually I find that from a retail digital signage and digital media perspective, London has a lot in common with Las Vegas, in that this is the place where retailers tend to put their flagship stores that have all of their coolest, most innovative things. So a walk down Oxford and Regent Street is usually a good way to kind of get a handle on what is the latest and greatest in what's going on in retail digital signage, just as much as walking through the Forum shops at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas will help you get a sense for that as well. Not necessarily the place that I thought I would be making a comparison ever between London and Las Vegas, but there you go. Let's see, I think that pretty much covers that. So what I'm going to talk about is actually, I'm going to take a little bit of a step back and provide a perspective on the pain points that are driving retailers to turn to in-store technologies right now. I mean, these technologies have been around forever. Like I said, I've been covering this space since 2005, and we're at a really interesting kind of inflection point driven to a large degree by cross-channel, which is really forcing retailers to kind of reevaluate what the in-store experience is and how they can really address that in-store experience in new ways, primarily by looking at technology. All right, so the example that I'm going to use, yes, it's US based, but that's where I live, so I'm going to go ahead and use it. If you do a Google search on vacuum cleaner, you get 21 million results. It's really small, but you can see right at the top, it's 20.9 million results. And just on the first page of results, you will often find just a huge amount of information about vacuum cleaners. You find a listing of brands, you find some product choices and prices, ratings and reviews, where even close to my neighborhood you can go and actually get a vacuum cleaner if you want one. And then there's even an article here down at the bottom that tells you basically what you should be looking for when you go to buy a vacuum cleaner. If you go to a Walmart store to buy a vacuum cleaner, you actually are at a huge disadvantage compared to starting out online, because all of the information that you have about vacuum cleaners is what's contained in the little price placard at the shelf, which often is just a repeat of the 6 lines of text that you find on the box, right? And so if you were in the store trying to decide how to buy a vacuum cleaner or what was important in a vacuum cleaner, you would be at a huge, huge disadvantage compared to if you started shopping online. And we're finding that from a shopper behavior perspective as well, right? As more people in the industry are turning to research around how consumers shop, we're finding more and more shoppers are starting online because the experience is a much better experience for educating themselves than it is if you go to a store. And I promise you, if you went to a Walmart store to ask for help looking for a vacuum cleaner, you would not find it. You'd be lucky to find a store associate, let alone find one that could tell you anything about why one vacuum cleaner is better than another. And it's not just the low-end stores that have these issues. So this is Macy's. Macy's is very much like a Marks and Spencer, maybe a little bit more. They're trying to be a little bit more higher end. At Christmas time, I was shopping for a coffee maker for my father-in-law and went to the store, and they had these 8 or 9 coffee makers on display. They do the little Keurig K-cups. And as you can see, it's pretty much the same typical kind of problem that you find in a Walmart. If you wanted to know what the difference is between these two products, you have absolutely no way of telling because the descriptions that they provide are completely useless. One of them doesn't even have the expanded description at the bottom. And anyway, they were basically all the same. You can see this one on your right for $150. That's the Keurig B60. I have no idea why this one is more expensive than the other one. So I went to Macy's website and I found that not only do they not have the full selection of products online, but if you look at that B60, it's not $150 on their website, it's $220. It's a huge price difference. And the only information that they're providing to me about this product is, if you're lucky, the color choices. There's still nothing here that tells me what the difference is between these two products. So I went to Keurig's website and the manufacturer, and they have a huge amount of information, but they also have some different prices. I mean, they help me decide what's the difference between some of these things, but as a consumer, by the time I got here and I've seen 3 different prices, 2 from the same retailer, naturally I felt compelled to price compare, and so I ended up buying my Keurig from Costco because it was the cheapest. So Macy's had 2 opportunities to catch me as a customer, and they messed it up because they didn't have their content in order and they didn't have it presented in the store in a compelling way. And again, if I had wanted help in trying to decide which coffee maker I wanted to buy, I was really lucky if I could find a store associate who could ring up a purchase, let alone explain to me or help me actually select something. And this is at a fairly high-end department store. So this is the gap that retailers are really struggling with, is how to take all of this information that exists out in the digital space and get it in the store. And I'll give you one more example. This is a company called Zoomies. So they sell to younger kids, teenagers, and they specialize in extreme sports like dirt biking and snowboarding and those kinds of things, skateboarding. So they have a site, they have mobile apps, they have a pretty popular social Facebook page, they have a huge amount of user-generated content, actually. They have a whole YouTube channel, and of course all of these crazy teen boys are doing stunts on their skateboards, recording it and then putting it on YouTube on Zoomy's site. They also have some tablet apps. And they have a huge number of brands that they work with. And here, this is Burton Snowboards, for example. So they have all of this very rich digital experience that's online, and there's absolutely none of it in their stores. Absolutely none. Now, they do have knowledgeable associates who really help out. But all of this content, it's a huge amount of content. Some of it they don't even have to manage themselves. The brand manufacturers work really hard in developing a lot of this content, but none of it gets surfaced as part of their store experience. So the challenge that retailers are facing right now is that the role of the store has really flipped in how it relates to the customer. So I tried to find a picture of, for all of you sci-fi fans out there, I tried to find a picture of the Source from The Matrix, but that doesn't translate very well from an image, so I went with Neo. But the store used to be the source of all knowledge about the customer, because the transaction and the interaction with the customer began in the store and it ended in the store. And so, even 5 or 6 years ago, the conversation about the customer involved a lot of, well, our store associates know the most about our customers, and we have to get that information out of their heads and we have to get it back into corporate so that we can use it. And now, because of that division between all of this rich digital experience that lives online and how none of it is getting into the store, we're in this situation now where the stores are the last to know. They're the low man on the totem pole. They are the ones who know the least about customers, because customers have done all of these wonderful things online and none of it gets into store associates' hands. So when a customer walks through the door, the store associate is actually the person now who knows the least about that customer. And so this is exactly what retailers are scrambling to address, is customers feel it and know it. When they come in the store, they understand that, hey, I'm a fan of your Facebook page. I follow you on Twitter. I'm up on all of the things that you do online. You've sent me all these emails. Now I've come into your store and you know nothing about me. And so this is the technology gap that retailers are really struggling to fill today. And technology-wise, they really don't have the tools to do it, right? We're starting from a worldview that was designed around information capture happened in the store, and it had to get back up to corporate. And that was the extent of the transaction, if you will, between stores and corporate. And really, the mobile phone has completely disrupted all of that. So when we ask retailers, so this is from our survey data, and this is across the world from a respondent perspective. This is something that we published in August of 2011. When we asked retailers from a cross-channel perspective, what would you rate as the most important thing for you to have sort of a single face to the customer, and what would you say you've made, how much progress would you say you've made in consolidating that? And on number one, top of the list, customer shopping experience, 90% of our respondents said it was very important. But only 13% have said that they've actually managed to consolidate that experience. So they're working on it. If you kind of look underneath that, you can see where some areas have been made, where some progress has been made. Pricing, for example, cross-channel transparency kills pricing strategies that differ by region or by geography or even by customer to some degree, definitely by channel. So we've seen where customer pressure has pushed on some of these things. But the customer shopping experience is definitely the number one priority on retailers' lists. And the things that they're turning to in order to address that gap is primarily in-store technology. But that in-store technology has really shifted from being something that was a cost control measure to something that now is much more about the customer experience. So this is comparing 2010 to 2011. We're actually updating, actually this is from our store survey that we do every year, and we just released that one this week, and I'll show you at the end how you can get it if you want it. But really, it's that shift away from cost management to making our employees smarter and better informed. So now I'm just going to run through a bunch of examples, and I want to be cognizant of my time. I'm doing good. I'm going to run through a bunch of examples. There's been a lot of interest, but I don't think a lot of success in trying to put technology in the hands of the customer. The Motive Media implementation was at a grocery store in the US, and they've taken that out. IBM version is implemented at a grocery store that's an Ahold brand in the US, and they are rolling that out. Intuilab, this is something that they've done in Orange stores in France, where on their digital displays you can do your product browsing and get additional information about your products, and then it will put up a 2D barcode, and you can take a picture of that to save that product information to your phone. They've also provided tablets to their store employees so that they can more intelligently interact with their customers. In terms of what that means for point of sale, it means bad news. It's bad news for point of sale, but I think it's good news for technology in the store overall. Point of sale is a very specialized platform in the store, and we're finding that retailers are increasingly looking at getting rid of it if they possibly can. It will continue to be important for cash transactions, and in some ways for inventory management, but more and more we're seeing, because of this focus on the customer interaction, retailers are looking to leverage their digital and online properties more and more in the store so that they can provide that seamless and holistic experience to the customer and not have that broken up across channels. So from a content strategy for stores, I think it's really important to think about how can I take platforms that already exist in the digital space and leverage those in the store, as opposed to just creating new standalone experiences. I think that is actually a challenge that we have, where when agencies get involved and they have these fantastic ideas that they want to implement in stores, it's great, but it's not leverageable because it's not repeatable. It doesn't leverage the assets that a retailer already has. We're also seeing some interest in using customers' own phones for point of sale. This is a company called Aisle Buyer. They convinced a toy store in Boston to trial consumers actually purchasing toys with their mobile phones themselves, so never having to interact with the point of sale register. And then what they did was they set up a store associate at the entrance exit, and also a receipt printer. So you came in, you used your app that you downloaded on your mobile phone, you scan the product, you enter your credit card number, you pay for it, and then it prints out a receipt for you at the door, which you then show your product, collect your receipt, and it's verified by the employee, and then you can leave. They've actually even developed, and it's been approved by MasterCard and Visa. I think they're still waiting on American Express, where you can use your phone's camera to just take a picture of your credit card as opposed to having to type in the number, and it automatically recognizes the credit card number, and it's counted as a card present transaction by MasterCard and Visa. I don't know what that will do for some of the PIN type stuff, but there you go. So then this has been making the rounds quite a bit. Tesco has a brand in South Korea, and one of the things that they did is they set up, they took over some subway stations, and they set up, basically it's a display, it's an image, but the image looks like a shelf in a grocery store. And so you use your camera on your phone to build a shopping list using 2D barcodes at the shelf, and then they'll deliver it to your house basically by the time you finish waiting for the train, get on the train, and get home. So the point is that once you start thinking about away from point of sale and looking at sort of digital assets more universally, then the store itself kind of gets blown up. You have opportunities to put the store in places that you never really thought of before. I kind of think of it as putting the buy button wherever you can. As soon as a customer wants it, you want that buy button in front of them so that they can press it and purchase. In terms of digital signage and in-store activity, we're seeing some interesting things. We're seeing increased use of NFC, some interest in having the tags be NFC so that you just tap your phone and you can get additional product information. It's a shortcut way of leveraging the consumer's device to provide that digital link to all of that content that exists out in the digital space. So product ratings and reviews would be a really natural application for something like this. And then this is a demo from IBM, and the demo shows interactivity between your phone and a digital screen, sort of large format in a store. So basically you connect, NFC, you tap your phone at the corner of the display to sort of connect to the display, and then you can use the large format to browse and shop for items from the catalog. And then as you choose things and you get recommendations, and these things are based in large part on who you are. You can see in the bottom left, the little picture that's the customer. So if you add things to your cart, then you can send that cart back to your phone so that you can take it with you. And it's basically your universal online shopping cart. So when you go home, if you wanted to log in at home and pay for it, you could do it there. Actually, there's... John Lewis finally put it up. They had a display about it at NRF in January of last year. But if you go to the John Lewis store on Oxford Street, they've got a display called Style Me, and it's video based. So it's interactive, but it's not touchscreen. It's just all video. And they were supposed to email me. I was there last night. So I got my picture taken. They're supposed to email me the pictures, but I haven't gotten them yet. So they're a little slow on that. But they also print them out. So if you want to see me looking ridiculous in oversized clothing, because I still think they have some kinks to work out on it, you're welcome to come up at the very end and take a look. But so there are retailers that are experimenting with these kinds of more interactive displays in stores. From a social perspective, some very easy things that we've seen. This is from a company called Locomoda. Basically, you can put up a screen, you get a short code. Consumers in your stores can text things to that short code, and then it will show up on the screen. You can set language filters if you're worried about that, or you can actually have somebody moderate them. But so you have the opportunity to just kind of let people sort of express themselves while they're in your store. There's also this concept called the tweet mirror, and actually Sunglass Hut is rolling these out, where you can take a picture of yourself while you're trying something on, and then you can either post it to Facebook, or you can tweet it, or you can email it. And of course, you can use that information. You're capturing that information about your customers. Other examples, so we're seeing a lot more activity around geofencing, so using a mobile phone and proximity to a store to institute communication between the retailer and the customer. And actually, Digby is one example of that that's providing that in the US. And then this is from CNA, which is a Brazilian retailer. So they've got a display where the hanger, that number on the hanger, is actually displaying the Facebook likes for that specific product. So they're another way where they're trying to surface some of that digital content that lives out there on the internet and bring it more into the store as part of that experience. And so then I just want to leave you with one more thought, which is for retailers, probably the biggest problem that they have right now is trying to figure out how to keep their stores relevant in an increasingly cross-channel and internet world. And for me, as I sort of cast my vision forward to what the opportunity is for stores, in some ways it's sort of a back to the future kind of perspective, right? Stores started out as a really important piece of the community. And I think as stores grew into chains, we lost some of that community because we were giving that up for efficiency's sake. I think there's definitely some exceptions to that. I mean, France is probably the most extreme exception of localization at the expense of sort of economies of scale or efficiencies. But the true opportunity for the retail store is to create an experience. We've kind of given that up a little bit. We've tried to create a corporate brand experience, but in terms of really driving that into the store and really putting a community face on that store, I think we've lost that a little bit. And I think that the internet and the way that social media in particular has kind of rebuilt more of a sense of community, this is the piece that retailers are feeling like it's missing. So I'm going to give you an example of one retailer that actually is really trying hard to kind of overcome that, and that's Desigual. They do these events in their stores where they basically throw a big party. And they'll do it, when they're rolling out their spring line and things like that. But they've co-branded it. They've reached out to other brands that they feel like have affinity to their own brand. But these are social events. The store manager is there. They're having a party. They're having fun with their customers, and they give their customers an opportunity to share that experience with their friends as well. This is the hard stuff to pull off. This stuff is not repeatable. It's not easily leverageable. But honestly, I think that as retailers increasingly have to compete with some of these online pure plays that are killing them on price, it's the experience that really has to get ramped up to kind of make up the difference. So I promised that I would tell you how you could get some of our research. All of our research is free to the community. All you have to do is go to rsrresearch.com. You do have to register, but once you register, you can download anything on our site. We also publish a weekly newsletter, so if you're interested in getting more insights from us on a more regular basis, you're more than welcome to do that. And I know we have a few minutes left, so if there's any questions.